this other thing that's annoying me this week. Colin Cowherd's been talking about this for a while, and I think it's a bigger issue than he's making it for a lot of reasons. So he's always saying, well, and the NBA has just a contentious, negative relationship with college basketball. And, he made the argument, especially with NIL now, well, if I get the choice, my kid gets to go to the G League or to college, I'm sending him to college because of the marketing, because Zion went to Duke for a year, and, I know who he is now. And, he goes to the NBA and, he's a big star. And, look how it works with college football. They stay 3 years. We know who they are. And then they get into the league and, they have a big following already. And I've always thought that was a really flawed argument. I mean, number one, for the obvious, in college football, they have this rule that the NFL has that I don't know how they've kept it this long, but you have to be 21 years old or 3 years out of high school to play in the NFL. So just by that rationale, you only have to be 19 to get in the NBA. So just by that rationale, college football's they've got these guys for 3 years. So they've got this time to build up this following or whatever. But I don't think it's the same for college basketball at all, because Zion Williamson played maybe a handful of games that anybody saw. And if he wasn't good in the NBA right away, nobody cares. Like, Ja Morant was, okay, everybody thought, okay, he's going to be a great player in that draft coming up, but nobody was going crazy about him in college, and he's a superstar now. So I don't believe, first of all, I don't know about the relationship between the NBA and college basketball. I do think it's great. It's a great place for people to go. I'm not knocking college basketball. I think it does a lot of things. It's great to play with a team, and you get the coaching in college basketball is really good, especially at the good schools. So I think it's a good tool, especially now since these guys can actually make money. Even if they're not, like, if you're a player and you're not going to be a top 10 pick or something, you can at least, even if you get a decision to make, all right, should I stay in college for another year and at least make a little bit of money, or should I go to the NBA? So I think that, that relationship between NBA and college is obviously changing. And I think there's a bunch of avenues to go. So, I mean, my first question to you is, they're talking about Adam Silver came out last week and is basically saying he thinks we need to not just change the age limit, but get rid of it altogether. And so I think that's a bit of a change from where they were. So what do you think about the age limit in general? And then what do you think about the relationship between the NBA and college basketball?
I mean, you could... Yeah, I mean, I could see the argument for getting rid of it. I guess the thought that crossed my mind is, how many... Because Colin's worried about... I guess he's concerned that they're going to come into the NBA and not be ready, or they're going to... they're not... He wants them to stay longer so they're more ready to just come in and play. Which I get that, but at the same time... I'm trying to think of what I was going to say here. I get that, but how many kids are like are coming out of college really quickly and then going to the NBA and being a bust, and then their lives are ruined. Like, because at the same time, I'm like, This is America. You're over the age of 18. Like, if you want to pursue something, you can pursue something, And if, maybe you could go back to college later, so, and then his whole thing, well, you get better coaching. I understand the better coaching thing, and that's probably the best point for going to college. But at the same time, it's just kind of like, well, if you want to get paid to do something and you're over the age of 18 and you can, then you can just sign up with the G League. Like, I don't see what the big, that does seem very... I'm not surprised that an older guy like Colin Cowherd would be promoting college, because I think older people are under the impression that all this learning is going on in college. And, by and large, you spend
Right.
your first 2 years relearning stuff you were supposed to learn in high school because most people aren't learning enough in high school anymore. And then you spend 2 years on your major, and, you know, I mean, you might learn some stuff. You know, it's...
Yeah, and if you're a one and done guy, right, you basically go to your class, you have to, you know, get a good enough GPA your first 3 months, and then you don't have to go to class anymore. So this idea that they're going to college and learning stuff is, no, they're going because they're playing basketball. Like this idea that, you know, well, it's better to get an education.
Well, and the other thing that people need to remember
if they
is,
want
and
to.
people constantly forget this, when we're talking, because the NBA draft has 2 rounds, okay? So we're literally talking about, like, what is that, 60 65 people? Okay, how many college basketball players are there in Division I? A few hundred?
Oh, there's like 300 schools. There's like 300.
Okay, 300 times what,
Division
15? I mean, that's like, there's over 1,000. Okay. So,
a lot of them.
And most of those kids, they're going to have to go, they're probably going to spend most of the time in college if they even get to the NBA. Like, they're either going to graduate or they're going to go for like 2 or 3 years. Then you actually do kind of learn something. So we get all nuts about this, and it's like, look, if you're that good at basketball that you can get drafted, like, you know, go for it, try to make it. If you don't make it, you know, you can figure it out after that. You know, you can go back to college or whatever. So I don't see what the big, you know, now if they want to get rid of the age limit, I do kind of think they should get rid of it, because you can have high school kids that can go into the NBA and can make a roster. And I think they should be given that opportunity.
Right.
You know, and then the guys that really want to go to college.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Or the guys that aren't good enough, they can go to college and they'll probably be there a few years.
Yeah, look, here's my take on the age limit. I understand what the NFL's doing. They want to make their product.
And especially they got to make sure you're built enough and you're physically able to play in the NFL.
Right, you know, but I also think and I think the NBA, honestly, my opinion, I think the NBA should do the same thing. I think the product on the court would be better if everybody was 21 years old. I just do. I think that's, you know, I don't have if it were me, that's what I would do. But I also have a problem with, like, Bryce Young from Alabama. He would have been one of the top 2 or 3 picks in the draft last year, and he's got to go back to college. Like, so I kind of see both sides. I understand if the NFL, from a business standpoint, if that's what they want to do, okay, I get it. I'm not in love with that, but I understand what they're doing, what their motivation is. And I really wouldn't have a problem if the NBA said, all right, you got to be 21. Because I honestly think, especially now, there's not only the G League, right? Some guys were going to Europe. You know, going to Europe for a year and coming back. There's also this new kind of development thing called Overtime Elite, which is kind of like it's not like the G League because there aren't as many teams, but it's basically like a basketball academy type thing. So I think this idea that, the NBA doesn't like college basketball, or they can't, that they're like demonizing college. I don't agree with that at all. I think the NBA is like, look, this world we have now, there's more options now. So let's offer these kids more options. Like when you came out in the 90s, right? It was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Because there was no support system for these guys at the time. Okay? They're coming in, it's like, all right, figure it out. No, Kobe and Kevin Garnett, okay, they had whatever it took. They were, tough enough or smart enough or whatever, to figure that out. But everybody can't do that. So I support the NBA trying to bridge some kind of gap to help these kids get into the NBA. And
well, and the other thing is,
properly.
look, so this is definitely something that we need that older people don't get. Okay, only I think it's something like a third of American adults go to college. Okay, there's plenty of people who don't go to college, right, and they end up being very successful. Okay, can college potentially give you a leg up? Possibly. Possibly. It depends what your major is. It depends what your skills are. But at a certain level, at a certain point, you have to learn how to be an adult. So if someone's 18 and they want to go into the G League, it's like, okay, well, you gotta go there, you gotta do that, you gotta show up on time to practice, you gotta work hard, you gotta try to make an NBA team. You gotta be an adult, and you gotta learn how to do it. Which to me, that's kind of, and it's also like if they go to Europe, well, I mean, it's like study abroad. You got to live in another country. You got to figure out all this stuff. That's kind of what that's kind of like becoming an adult. You got to figure out how to live on your own. So again, this is America. If someone wants to pursue that, they can pursue that. Like, what's the the college thing? It's not, the problem is a lot of these people saying this, they went to college in like the 70s or the 60s. Or even the early 80s. And it's like, guys, it's totally different now. So,
right.
And you could also, I mean, look, you could go to college later, you could go online. You could go to night classes or something. Like, you don't have to just take this time out of your life to I mean, essentially what college is. It's like you graduate from high school, you're an adult, and now you get to take this 4-year sabbatical and you can party and kind of learn and screw around, and then you get to become an adult. It's like, okay.
Yeah, no, and I think the United States is the only country that I know of that does it this way, where we combine education and athletics, and it doesn't mix at all. Like, it's so asinine that we think, oh, this is a good idea. Like if you were starting over again, right, and this is what you were going to do, you would not. No one would come up with the system. Because it's not really about, it's not really about education. It's not really about, you're trying to do these two things that they don't mix. They're not conducive to each other at all. They don't enhance one another, number one. And like in Europe, like in soccer and in basketball, like they have these academies where you learn, like if you're going to be a basketball player and you decide that really early, okay. Like, Luka Doncic as an example, moved from Slovenia to Spain when he was 13 so he could play in the Real Madrid academy, right? Worked through that. He wanted to be, I'm going to be a basketball player. Okay. He's 16. He's a professional. And then he's playing in a professional league. Like, why does it have to be that, oh, well, you can't not go to college. Like, in Europe, if you want to pursue your education, go ahead. You want to be an athlete, go ahead and do that. But we're not going to mix the two together and expect you to do both at the same time. So I just think the fact that the NBA is now creating avenues that weren't there before, where it's like, oh, okay, if you're really, this is what you're going to be, a professional basketball player. Well, all right, so go do that. There's no reason for you to, screw around in English class, like what are you doing? Like, so I think, I have a problem with Colin Cowherd acting like, well, the G League's not a good avenue and it's not blah, blah, blah. No, bullshit. Like Jalen Green played in the G League last year. He's doing great. So it's
let me just be really pro-America here, okay? America is about taking risks, okay? Like people that start businesses, that's a huge risk. If you're being smart, people will be like, don't do that. What are you, insane? It's going to fail because most small businesses fail, So people will move. They'll just be like, I'm going to move over here. And it's like, well, I don't have any family there or whatever, but I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to try it out and see what happens, And in America, I mean, you could be really successful, or you could fail and you could do something else. I mean, there's plenty of opportunities here. So, let people be adults when you're 18, you're kind of let people be adults. Let them make decisions. If they fail, they fail, and you can figure it out later.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, like I just brought up Jalen Green. Like, okay, let's say he got injured or whatever, didn't make it in the league. He got $500,000 for playing in the.
He went after it. Okay. You could say he went after it and he tried it and it didn't work.
Now he can go. Yep. Now he can go do whatever else he wants to do, whatever the next thing in his life is. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with kids choosing. And now it's like, look at all these avenues that you have. Like if you can't get into the G League, well, they got this overtime elite thing. If you can't get into that, you can go to college. If you want to go in the next year in the draft, you can. If not, you want to stay in college and keep making NIL money, you can do that. So there's a million options for them, and they're all actually pretty good.
Yeah.
So,